Well, good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here, speaking at this podium and sharing it really with a lot of the leaders from the last few days. I've had to sort of rewrite what I wanted to say about 6 times, given the time that every time that Bob stood up, he stole what I'd written, and every time that anybody else stood up, they wanted to cover the points I was going to cover. That being said, I'd just like to, thank all the policymakers and Governor McAuliffe for being here, for the comments they've made over the last 2 days, which have been very supportive of our industry and what we're trying to do. And I think, we will stay in contact with the governor. Clearly, it's a very important Commonwealth and a very important state, a part where we want to be, and we want to work with him because he clearly understands the importance of biomedical research, investment, and risk-taking. So that being said, many of you know that I've spent a long time in this industry. I've spent 35 years in this industry. I never thought I'd be standing here in front of you today. I didn't actually believe I would a year ago. I thought Bob would want to go for another term. And we've worked on him, but he's been resistant. And over my 35 years, I've always reflected upon the incredible impact our industry has made in improving and extending lives. And it's easy to say. And we stand up here and we talk about all the science we do and all the good we do. But the most impactful way is when you bring patients in. And we often do that in Pfizer. When we play videos and we bring patients in, and our people can see the good we do and the science we put into it. So today I want to talk about 3 things with you. I want to talk about the good we do, our science, but I also want to talk about the value we generate and the importance of how we talk about the value we generate. Then I want to talk about pharma's goals and priorities. Then I want to finish with some personal reflections about our standing in society, the misperceptions and the gaps, and why fixing those misperceptions and gaps is so important to us. So let's start with the value we bring to society. I believe the theme of this year, which is From Hopes to Cures, captures the essence of the value we deliver. It expresses what we've done and shows where we've come from. Innovative new medicines and vaccines are possibly the most powerful levers for stemming disability that directly threatens an aging population. They are great value for money. They also ensure the healthy development of a growing population in the United States. Our conversation is very often about the science, about the investment, about the risk we take. But the dialogue with society is switching. As we see the exchanges, as we see the payers, as we see one-payer systems, as we see the budget crunches, the dialogue stops being just about dignity and the value of life. And we start to talk about the value we bring to society in terms of dollars. Not my preferred discussion, but one we have to enter into because the value we bring to society is important to the extent society is willing to invest in us. So let's just talk about that for a few seconds in real terms of dollars and cents. Let's talk about statins, something that a lot of us in this room have been a part of over 20 years. There's an academic peer-reviewed article in Health Affairs demonstrating that between 1987 and 2008 alone, statins generated $1.3 trillion in social value. Peer-reviewed, accepted, done in the same way that perhaps NICE would do its evaluations, probably a little more honestly than NICE would do it, but done in an appropriate academic fashion. Of that $1.3 trillion, the industry accrued approximately 30% of that value. 70% was left with society. We don't hear about that. I don't see that in the headlines. I don't see that being discussed by politicians on the floor of the Senate. According to IMS and CMS, of the top 20 drug therapy classes as measured by spending in 2012, Cancer drugs represented the largest, 24.9 billion. Yet that cost still only represents 1% of the total healthcare expenditures of the United States, which totaled 2.8 trillion. One analysis, Journal of Health Economics 2010, quantified the economic value of gains in cancer survival from 1988 to 2000 and found that improvements in cancer survival created an estimated 23 million additional life years over that period. An improvement that created roughly 1.9 trillion of additional social value. The vast majority accrued to patients. 81% of that value accrued to society. I don't hear that being discussed. I don't hear it in CNBC. I don't hear it in the dialogue. I don't hear it when we go to Washington. I don't hear it when we go to Geneva. I don't hear it when we go to Europe. According to the World Health Organization, immunization saved an estimated 2.5 million lives every year. For every $1 in the US spent on childhood vaccinations, we saved $10.20 in disease treatments. I don't hear about that either. I don't hear about the value we transfer through our vaccines. Pharmaceutical innovations accounted for 73% of the total increase in life expectancy between 2000 and 2009. So we're no longer talking about improving sanitation and water supply and all the things that helped improve life expectancy in the early part of the 1900s. We've been doing good and creating value for patients over 50 years. And there are more great things to come. So this issue, we have the capacity to talk about the value we contribute to society in terms of dollars and cents. But we have to do it in a way that engages society. And that's something that I feel that we have not found the way through that argument. We can talk about, we're excited, we're poised, the next revolution is coming. As we've talked about for the last 2 days, the merging of biology, the understanding of fundamental pathways, the merging of chemists with our new biological understandings, and that our pipelines are deeper and better than they have ever been. Personally, I believe, looking at my company, Pfizer, I'm proud of where I see the pipeline. And I think most companies in this room believe that. And at the back end of this decade, if not earlier, we're going to see huge advances for patients. And innovation is a bedrock that will allow us to achieve that. And I want to recognize the patient groups and other groups here that stand with us and are advocates for us, because you see that promise, you see that investment, you see that risk that we take, and you know, as patient groups, that we are part of the solution. So let's talk a little bit, having discussed this issue of value of medicines, both in terms of the science and the excitement we can create, and in terms of dollars and cents. Let's talk about pharma's goals and priorities. I'd just like to take a break here and say, I think I've been working with pharma now for 4 years. I think it's one of the best institutions I've come across in my career, and I've lived in many countries and I work with many groups. We should be proud of the quality and the dedication of the pharma employees and the members of our staff that help them. So I'd just like to give a round of applause to the pharma staff. Thank you. So let's look at the priorities. We need to work at these priorities. We need to look at access. The pharma platform is smart, it's focused, it's actionable. It's strategically and tactically correct. The priorities sort of address the most critical issues that we are looking at today. Preserving broad patient access to safe and effective medicines, including robust coverage of those medicines, something that is becoming more and more critical today as we see specialty tiers and we see insurance companies and payers shifting costs sometimes to those least able to meet those costs. Pharma's platform is about supporting innovation. We need strong IP protection. We need it domestically and we need it internationally. And pharma is focused, as most of our companies are, on that. The third strand of Pfizer's priorities is ensuring transparent, effective regulation and a free flow of information to patients. This is a key issue for us. I've worked in Europe for a lot of my career. I see the consequences of not being able to talk directly to patients. I see the consequences of a society that is not open, and we don't want to be there. We need to continue to push as an organization on our right to talk directly to patients. As more and more of pharmaceuticals, as more and more of our industry moves to open communication, to a symmetry between what we know and they know, in fact an asymmetry. I believe now people know more about our medicines than we do. We need to have this right to talk openly to all parts of society. And I personally think this is a major plank that we need to drive and have discussions with Congress about the need to readdress laws that were for a period when we didn't have symmetry in flow of information. And then I want to come to the last one, which is promoting the narrative that demonstrates the value of our society, of our companies and what we do. Promoting the value of pharmaceuticals to society. This narrative is a key narrative in winning the hearts and minds of society to support what we do. It sounds soft. Most of us come from a scientific or an engineering background, and the first strategies of access and IP and regulatory, we feel comfortable with that. We can write plans around that. We can get action plans, we can do talking points, we can interact. And then we talk about this soft thing, about the dialogue with society, our reputation, our image. And it's always the fourth on the list. We never really ever get to this issue. But I believe it's the issue which will determine our future success. We can win the wars. We can win, the battles. We can win the battle on access. We can win the battle on regulatory. But bad ideas keep on coming back. And people who have been in this industry for 35 years, you never kill bad ideas with tactics. The only way to kill bad ideas is to win the hearts and minds of the customers, of the patients, of society. So let's reflect a little bit on our real standing, our reputation. And I'm really left with a deep concern about that. When I talk to people outside of this industry, people we need to influence, people that don't know the details of what we do, whether it be senators, congressmen, friends, academics, leaders in other parts of society, there is a huge gap between what we know we do and what they perceive we do. And without a strong reputation and understanding by society, I don't think we can achieve our goal of helping patients and helping our scientists and helping everybody in this endeavor to achieve the cures we need to achieve. So PhRMA's done a lot of research as to why. Yet we haven't solved it. And I don't stand here today telling you I have a solution. But I do stand here telling you today that if we do not address this, we will eventually lose what I see as this war for the hearts and minds of society. And there are many reasons given as to why we don't have this reputation, why we're not held in high esteem, why people won't stand with us. How many times have I heard conversations in this industry where we say, well, we can't express this, we can't talk about this, we need to look for a partner. That represents something wrong with our industry, with everything we do and all the good we bring, that we don't have enough confidence and enough reputation to stand up and make the arguments for ourselves. One of the first frequently cited reasons for the lack of reputation of the industry is a perceived lack of transparency in our clinical data and our financial relationship with healthcare providers. I don't know about most of you, but I hear that frequently when I go to lobby or I talk about the industry. And I believe we've made huge strides in addressing this. I believe this is something that, you know, may have been an issue in the 80s or the 70s or the early 90s, but now we post clinical trials and some results on a US government website. We work with the EMA to expand access. We're going to, most of our companies have very good policies on allowing bona fide researchers access to our research, even at the level of patient data. We're disclosing payments for consultancy, speaker forums, clinical trials, Sunshine Act. Yet, the perception remains. This perception of too close relationships, lack of transparency, remains with most of the people you interact with who are not intimately involved with this industry. Second reason given for the lack of reputation, or the gap in the reputation of this industry, and probably one of the hardest to close, is the perception that we put profits before patients. Fact of the matter is that our pricing reflects the value of our medicines and reflects the need for us to generate profits to invest in research. It reflects the need to have sound insurance policies. It reflects the need to have a society that's willing to support the value of our medicines and the reimbursement necessary so we can continue to do our work. And the industry makes those arguments. The industry is committed and gives back through work it does with NGOs. Several are represented here today. PhRMA's Partnership for Prescription Assistance, PPA, has helped millions of qualifying patients get the medicines they need by serving as a single point of access to more than 475 public and private programs, including nearly 200 offered by pharmaceutical companies. Through this effort, many patients get their medicines free or almost free. I'd also note that over the last decade, biopharmaceutical research companies have provided more than $9.2 billion in direct assistance to healthcare in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This includes donations of medicines, vaccines, diagnostic equipment, as well as other material and labor. Yet this perception that this industry puts profits in front of patients remains, despite all that we do in this area. And the third area which concerns me is it appears there's a perception gap that we do not make deep contributions to science. I've been on the Hill and I've heard comments like, well, you don't really do science, you just manufacture. You do sort of some development, but all of it's really done by the NIH. All of it's done by the scientists in universities. If you go out and you do a general questionnaire of individuals, of the general population, and you ask them to give 10 points to who generates medicines, the pharmaceutical industry gets 2 out of 10. That's the size of the gap. We all sit here and we talk about our science and we talk about our technology and we talk about our investment and we talk about our translation of basic science to medicines. Out there, no one knows it. 2 out of 10 was what we get for development of medicines. The rest go to government, physicians, hospitals, scientists. It takes us 10 to 15 years of dedicated science to translate some basic scientific work, some beginnings, profound, important. Without that basic research, we can't start. But to get from that basic research to the medicines that are safe and effective takes huge capital, huge investment, great science, and great risk. Over the last year alone, the industry invested more than $50 billion in R&D. And since 2000, we've invested more than $500 billion in R&D. Yet the perception remains, certainly in academia, certainly in the general population, that we're a marketing organization. PhRMA's known for its marketing. So I fundamentally believe that we can fix this, that we need to fix this. We need to narrow the perception gap between what we do and what people perceive that we do. And only by narrowing this gap can we be effective in winning the war and not the battles. Only by narrowing this gap can we achieve what we need to achieve, which is broad support in society for what we do. So I know all of you have thought about this, as I have over my career, and I don't think there's a silver bullet. But I think the way to make progress is to draw upon the great work already being done by PhRMA and FBA and other institutions. It's redoubling our efforts to build symbiotic partnerships and deeper relationships with patient groups, with NGOs, to reach out. It's working together to help educate policy leaders, academics, on what we do and how we do it. It's reaching out to patients and explaining more about the drug delivery process. But it's also about us standing together as an industry, being prepared to speak with our voice, and having the courage to be honest and forthright and stand up and say, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and we don't have to go through third parties to say, we're the pharmaceutical industry, we create 3.6 million jobs in the United States, $800 billion of exports, and go through how we create value and how we stand by patients. So I want to focus on this, and in the coming year, I think it's something that needs to be focused on for more than 1 year. I think this is a long-term project the industry has to undertake to close this gap in perceptions. And I talk a lot about this in Pfizer. It's part of our culture, this gap. I talk to our employees about how, our colleagues, how can we close this gap? We have thousands of employees who we need to educate, who can go out and talk about what we do. We have hundreds of thousands of suppliers who can talk about this. We are not without resources. We are not without abilities to get this message out. We have patient groups that stand with us, but we need to have a focused narrative. We need to put resources behind this narrative, because though it may be soft and it may not be as concrete as strategies around access and IP and regulatory reform, it is essential that we get this right. And the time is closing in. If we do not get broad support from society, we will not be able to continue funding research at the level we fund. So, how would I describe what success would be? And I get this question at Pfizer from colleagues. You know, there's lots of ways of describing it, and very often this is what we do in business, right? We set up a vision. We say, this is the vision of where we want to be, and now how do we construct tactics around that? So I'm going to give you one. It's pretty simple, and perhaps we can come up with a better way of expressing it. But I think we'll know we're where we need to be on our reputation when, if we walk into the street and we pick an average citizen and we say to that person, why do you believe you need a vibrant pharmaceutical industry? Or some choice of words around that. And the answer is, I believe that they drive discovery and development of cures that will make my life, my children's life, and my grandchildren's lives better. That's all we need. Just for the average person to say, I understand that this industry is committed to us, and they are our best hope, maybe our only hope, of finding cures for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and cancer and all the other afflictions that we still have not cured. So I hope you share that vision. I hope you understand that I'm extremely positive and excited about our pipeline and what we can do. But I do believe we have to grapple with this perception issue of the industry, and we need to fix this within the next few years. or we are not going to have the resources and the support of society to continue to do the work we're doing. So I look forward to working with you over the next year, continuing to work with Bob, who's a tremendous advocate for this. And I want to thank you for your time and wish you all the best in the coming year. Thank you very much.